Integrate Yourself. I'm your host, Allison Pillow, and you can find me on pureenergypdx.com. Today, I am here with Josh and Jeanne Rubin of East West Healing. They have literally I can't remember what I was going to say. They've literally, oh, here he goes. They've literally revolutionized thyroid health with their teachings. And I definitely have, learned so much. I mean, all my nutrition background mostly that I use these days comes from Josh and Jeanne's work. So thank you guys so much for doing what you do, helping all the people you help, and including myself. I really appreciate you a lot. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks, no worries. We're happy to be here.
Yeah.
Before we get started, I want to thank all our COVID sponsors for this talk show today. Just kidding.
There it is.
Of course, there we go.
Big take on.
Yeah, I love talking to you guys because you guys have a really realistic view on health and what really is going on. And because right now there's so many things. Health has now become a political issue. It's kind of ridiculous, and you guys know as well as I know, like we've been talking about how to really tap into your natural potential within your body so that you can trust your body and your body can really heal itself. But I feel like people are being steered in a different direction these days with coronavirus and the scare of the virus and now a promise of a vaccine taking care of everything for people. And I know that's kind of a very controversial subject to talk about, but in my opinion, it's not. It's because I feel like it's obvious that our bodies can do what it's supposed to do. And this is how our bodies are supposed to respond to our environment, right? So what is you guys' take on that and what's going on in the world and maybe how we can prepare ourselves better for what's going on?
I think, obviously it's a big topic, but for me, it really comes down to this. Information with missing information is misinformation. And unfortunately, most people are not informed, right? So for instance, let's just use, let's say I have a PhD in lip gloss, right? And I've studied it for 16 years and I know everything about it. And Sally wants to debate with me about lip gloss, but Sally knows nothing about lip gloss because she's not informed. You can't have the conversation. And that's what's happening with these topics, with vaccines, with COVID. There's people that are educated, there's people that are informed, there's people that are experts at different things, but everyone wants to argue about it. And arguing is not a conversation. It's like vaccines. You can have a view on vaccines, but if you've never done the research and you've never become informed, even if you want to talk to me about the dangers of them, and I want to talk to you about the dangers of them, and you want to talk to me about how we need them, if you've never educated yourself besides CNN, you can't have the conversation. But that's where I see all this. Even with COVID, people just, the CDC says this and the news says that. So I think, and you could take this even and take what I'm saying and bring it back down to health in your life. People are not becoming informed. They're following the next trend, the next diet, the next social media guru, instead of really coming back to say, I just need to inform myself about what I need to do every day. It's like we're robots. We're empty and we're robots.
Yeah.
We're trying to repeat what we hear and live our life according to everyone else, and that's exhausting.
But it's a really easy place to be when we have a culture that is completely dissociated from themselves, right?
Yes,
and being
definitely.
in a place of fear and uncertainty already. So to be able to make informed decisions or conscious decisions about what you feel, or even be able to access the information or slow down enough to be able to retain that, requires a little bit of resourcing, right? So
yes.
I think that we have to,
I
think it's a perfect storm. We're getting set up for failure. And I think it always has been, we are much more valuable ill than we are healthy, right?
That's very true. Oh yeah, great point.
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
have to become a little bit more aware and start coming back to ourselves and looking at what, the bigger picture of what's making us ill and how do we begin to rebuild. And that's what we're helping people to do, is create a little bit more awareness of what's happening for
Yeah.
me. Where do I come from? You know what I mean? And what does
Yeah.
that mean to where I am today? And how do I
Right.
begin to start? Where do I even begin to start that process?
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Yeah,
then
because I've heard, okay, yeah, I was just gonna say that I've heard you guys say before, many times that like your history is what makes you where you are, it gets you where you are today. That's exact. All you need to do is look at your history. What have you
yeah,
been doing most of for all these years, and as well as the stresses that you've been under, and how is that, now accumulated into what you're experiencing now. It's not just something that came overnight. It's been there for a long time, right?
your story. You're everything from conception till now. Someone says, "Oh, it's the diet that did this." How do you know? Like, yeah, it's even from like being in the womb, And if you study different people's work, they talk about this, and you can make the connections. But whether it's a traumatic birth, whether you grew up in a very abusive environment, or your power was taken away by your parents because maybe they didn't parent you consciously and they made every decision for you, or maybe you had some sort of trauma, or you dieted or overworked or over exercise. All these things disconnect us from self.
Hmm.
But that's what it's an accumulation which gets us to where we are today, right?
Right.
And I think people have to realize that that's part of their story. It's not to be like a detective and say, where did it start? I don't think you're ever going to know where it started, right? Because
Right.
stress is an accumulation, right? We can't go, I know where it started. But if we can understand who we are and realize that and this is, I feel like, which differentiates us from a lot of people, it's like, if your grass turns brown, you don't just spray paint it green,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
right?
good
That's
point.
what most
Yeah.
people are doing with protocols, diets, supplements, labs, programs. Instead of focusing on the person, or the soil, and what the soil needs, and listening to the soil and nature, they're just saying, let's just make it green again.
Mm.
And that's focusing on the effect, right? But the
Hmm.
problem is nothing's changed. The causes haven't changed. That's why when people take a thyroid medication, nothing changes, because nothing's changed. So we're trying to say, what's going on in the soil? What got us here? How do we look at our environment? How do we create a better environment for this grass to grow? And we're trying to really instill that in people. And it's just a different way of thinking, because people are so used to just they're just not used to looking at that. And that's hard for
Right.
people, because like Jeannie said, we're just so disconnected from ourselves. And it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable
Oh,
to
totally.
feel and look into that.
Yeah, but I think in coming back to that conversation of trauma, it's, again, it's not an event, right?
Right.
It's a
Right.
response in the
Right.
body. So a lot of the times there is no relationship to what that even is, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing, but you have even this accumulation of, I mean, I was talking to Josh about it yesterday. Like, we have so many 16-year-olds, 20-year-olds, like this
Wow.
young population that we're seeing this trend with coming to us, that are so physiologically compromised. And you have to
Wow.
begin to question. I mean, we already know that our biology can't keep up with a lot of the changes that are happening, right? But
Yes.
coming back to the vaccination and the list of vaccinations and the multiple pregnancies and just the life in the we're living today, the society culture, it's depleting. It is severely depleting. So there's all these little micro traumas that are taking place
Right.
that we're
Yeah.
not aware of, but the accumulation are really creating an inability for us to regulate.
Well, it's interesting you say
Yeah.
that, because I saw a piece from this movie. Oh, what's it called? The Social Dilemma.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's been talking about that.
I saw a
I
piece of it.
saw it. Yeah, yeah. It was very is kind of mind blowing. And I mean, everybody kind of knows that
Yeah.
kind of is going on, but it not at that level. You know what I mean? It's like, wow.
Yeah, we'll watch it. But they talk about how when phones kind of came out, like, technology has gone up like 100 quadrillion in speed, or something like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
over the past
Right.
10 years, but our brains haven't changed. So what they're
Right.
seeing in this Generation Z is people that were born like I think 1995 or after is
It's a real
they
thing.
don't know how to be bored. They don't know how to connect with
It's
themselves.
true.
It's like
Oh,
their phone
yeah.
is their pacifier,
Right.
right?
Right.
They get gratification from it. At the same time, they've noticed that because of social media, not just social media, but phones and being on it, but they've seen with this generation less resiliency, more illness, the inability to make decisions, the inability to take risks, the amount of people in that generation that are successful or getting their driver's license even has gone down by like over 50%
Yes.
because of this. And this is why I believe we're seeing a young, and they've said this, a younger and younger generation that are just like so apathetic and just there. And
Hmm.
these are the people that we talk to that are like, I have SIBO, Candida, vitamin K deficiency, the MTHFR gene. The list goes on and on and on and on and on because that's all they can attach to.
Yeah.
It gratifies them to know that there's something wrong with them in a sense, but
There's a
there's really nothing wrong with
diagnosis.
them. It's just mismanaged physiology, right? It's that
Right.
accumulation that's been mismanaged that has got him there. So it's challenging because so many people are so focused on what's wrong with them and what's making them wrong in the sense of like, oh, this food's bad, this is bad. Nothing's bad. It's all the strategy. It's how you got here, right? Because we could say fruit's metabolic, but for us, if you don't have with a protein and a meal, it could have a bad consequence on your physiology. So it's all about strategy, you
Yes.
know. I just thought that was an interesting point, and that's why I think we're talking to so many
100%.
20,
That is
25-year-olds, 24-year-olds.
that is so interesting. I didn't even think about it like that, and it's very true. I mean, I have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old now, and um, yeah, they don't get their driver's license. I mean, my 16-year-old has no interest whatsoever in getting his driver's license right
We were
now.
like,
Yeah, I know. I As 15, I was like, I'm ready. I'm ready
I
to
had like a
go.
chart in my room and everything. I was ready. I'm
Of
just,
course you
I
did.
Yeah.
didn't know. I'm just being,
But I think I think with the it's interesting that you also bring up the diagnosis of like Candida and all these things. It's because it seems to be like, oh, I have Candida. Okay, that's the answer. That's where I'm gonna,
yeah,
and then I'm gonna do this die off thing. And I've been hearing some of that a lot lately. And doctors are helping people with that, but they're not. That's not gonna really. And I'm saying in the back of my head, I'm thinking that's not gonna help them. It actually might even make things worse. It's
Oftentimes it does.
yeah.
yeah,
On
yeah,
a psychological level, I think it makes people worse, right?
absolutely,
You know,
yeah,
and that's why people are working with so many different people and spending so much money, and every person does the same thing philosophically. They're doing the same thing,
yeah,
right? Um,
right,
you have this, let's treat this, instead of saying, you're Joey, let's work with Joey. Like, who is
yeah,
Joey? How did you get here? Oh,
exactly,
Joey, you work 60 hours a week in your job and you're an attorney and you have to take these 3 medications just to go to your job, but you hate your job and you're restless, anxious, and you can't sleep. Interesting. Like,
yeah.
this is why. It's not because you have candida, it's because you're creating the environment for all this to happen.
Right. It's your lifestyle. It comes down to your lifestyle. And of course, I always say, like, how are you prioritizing yourself? Are you actually giving yourself any time or interest at all? I mean, because if you're just medicating yourself or throwing medication at yourself, um, or trying all these strategies, it's kind of almost like a distraction so that you don't have to actually be with yourself, is the way I see it. Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Absolutely. It's scary to be with yourself, especially
Yeah.
when you have no idea who you are, right? So
Right.
when you start to step into that realm, it's a very scary place for a lot of people to be. And we see it over and over and over again. Is I don't even know how I feel. I don't even know what
Right.
I want. You know what I mean? How am I
Mhm.
supposed to tap into how do I feel when I got nothing?
Yeah.
What
And
a
I know
scary place to be.
I've definitely been there. I know exactly what you're
No.
talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
and for me, the thing that helped most, I think, was to kind of transmute that into like play, like learning how to play again, because I just did not even know how to do that, because I'd been taking life so seriously for so many years. And so when I get clients come to me now, I can see very clearly if they're doing that. And I'm like, sometimes they really crave me to give them more things to do.
You're like, here's a toy.
And I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
Like, I have a solution. Have a baby. Then you can play with your baby and you're going to be good. No.
They don't have no time whatsoever.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, you will have, they will definitely teach you how to play. Kids do, for sure. I love that. Yeah.
I mean, that's a good point. I think it's just coming back to life.
Mhm.
We've gotten so lost in this
Yeah.
process. And that's why people are struggling. That's why people have depersonalization, autoimmune disease. We're at the end of the rope here. We're on empty. We're $1 million in debt. That's why we're far from ourselves. We're so suppressed. We're depressed. We're on empty, and that's where most people are living. And they want, I'm going to drink this whippy-do coffee, or I'm going to take this nootropics.
Yeah.
Or we just have to
Right.
focus on the different pieces. And that's what we're doing with our nutrition program, and the work, not just nutrition, but the work we do with people is helping them say, here's my foundation. Where do I need to patch? But also, where do I need to rebuild and restructure? So I can pull away the scaffolding and create a new path for myself and be more aware, so I can make better decisions for myself and say, oh, you know what? Maybe I do need to change jobs. Maybe I do need to work less. Maybe I do need to play more. Maybe I just need to stop during the day and pause for 5 minutes. I do that. I lay on the floor, and Jeanne will come in my office and be like, where are you? I'm down here. I just lay on the ground. I've always done that. Even as a little kid, when I couldn't sleep, I remember I'd lay on my floor with my blanket and pillow, and I could fall asleep much easier. So for me, it grounds me. It pulls me into my body. But how many people stop during the day?
Yeah.
They stop at 9 at night when their kids go to bed. It's too late by then.
Right. Well, what do you guys think? Do you think this is the whole coronavirus thing with, changing really a lot of that structure for people? Do you think this is kind of a wake-up call?
I hope so. I think it is for a lot
some.
of people. I think
Mhm.
there's a balance. I think it's a little bit for some it is, and for some it's going to make things a lot worse.
Yeah,
right. It
right.
already is, but I think there's a real opportunity to do things a little bit differently coming out of this, and time to settle in and say, hey, you know what do I really want? And I really enjoy being with my family, or this sucks, or whatever it might be, But I think the opportunity is there. It's just whether or not we're capable of taking it.
Yeah, I've seen
being okay with that, or jumping right back in where we left off. What are we going to do? And I think we're going to get a mix, but I think when we do step back in, we'll have something to compare it to, which might, again, there's going to be layers. I think it's going to come in layers for sure, just like everything does.
I've had some clients that are so frazzled, they can't even continue working with me. They're so frazzled because the news and CNN and this and that. And, I need to buy a face shield and a mask and a hazmat suit and don't touch me. And then you have another group that's like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I can work from home. I can slow down. I can see my kids more. Like my client today, new client. She's a lawyer, 60 hours a week, was supposed to be a partner in the firm. Corona hit. She's like, I don't want to be a partner. She's like, I hate my job. She's like, I want to be with my 2 kids. They're 2 and 5. I want to see them grow up. So I'm trying to figure out how I can work part-time now. Yeah. And I don't even know if I can do that at this job. So I think it's going to be a little bit polarized depending on the person.
Yeah. And there's great opportunity there to create something different. And maybe even something that, they didn't know even was possible before. So that's where I think the play comes in. But if you don't take that space, if you don't take the time for yourself to actually check in and to see exactly what you want, and acknowledge your desires and those kinds of things, then you just override that until you get sick or something slows you down in some other way, probably.
I think this is a big wake-up call. I think it's a huge wake-up call, and if we ignore it, we're screwed. I think it's very global. It's very broad. It's huge. It's so much bigger than just ourselves. This is happening. If you just kind of zoom out, it's happening at all levels of, in our world. So we really do need to refocus and recenter and find ourselves again in it all. I think that that's the greatest gift that we can give to the world. And I think, again, it comes back to so much about what I love in our work is that we are reconnecting people to themselves. And when you can reconnect to yourselves, you're going to be able to reconnect to others. So there's this little bit of a domino effect where we're all affecting one another.
Yeah, but you said something important, because we look at things from a nervous system perspective.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's body temperature and pulse, a person's personality, doesn't matter. You know, we look at it from the relationship between the adrenal, thyroid, and the nervous system. The adrenal feeds the thyroid, and we'll explain it, but the thyroid feeds the cells, produces energy, auto-regulates the nervous system. People can't auto-regulate right now. They can't fall asleep at
That's
night.
true.
They literally can't calm down because they're always in that sympathetic state, right? So my point in what she was saying is there's three pieces there's two pieces of your nervous system: parasympathetic, sympathetic. Rest and digest, you know, like right now we should be parasympathetic.
Yeah.
Sympathetic is like, I'm going to go for a run, or I'm scared, or I'm working all the time. There's different kind of states of that. And then the lower, more primitive is another piece, the parasympathetic. It's actually what babies are born with. It's called the dorsal vagal part of the nervous system, and that's your like immobilized frozen state, right?
Oh, right.
But
Yeah.
that parasympathetic is social engagement, right? Because it
Mhm.
connects the face with the heart, the actual nerves do. So when we can get back to that socially engaged state, right, we know we're in a parasympathetic state.
Well, that's
And when we're
interesting that
immobilized,
you.
we isolate, we're depressed, we're in that frozen state, you know.
Oh, gotcha. So there's, yeah, I see what you're saying. That makes sense, actually. Um, and so
How many
it's really
people are
interesting.
paralyzed right now?
Yeah, right. And because they can't see each other's faces and they can't connect through
Right.
the heart. So
We're
like
pushing
there's not that
that
relaxation when you see
threshold.
somebody anymore. When you see another person, you're freaking out. You're like, this is fear, it comes up. And so then you're not relaxed anymore, right? Yeah.
So when it comes to that, it's like, and we're not saying like eat this food, it's great for the adrenals. Take this food, supplement, it's great for the adrenals. That's spray painting your grass green.
Mm,
We look at it from the standpoint: how do we change the environment? How do we change how we're living? How do we focus on what is and what not working for us? How do we eat strategically? Whether it's the foods we eat, when we eat, how do we create balance to take the burden off the adrenals, right? Because they're taking it on the chin. It's
yeah.
almost like everyone's taking supplements and they're doing it in the middle of Vietnam. Like, is it really going to work? No, right?
No, 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 no. With all these shots flying by your head. You're like,
Right.
yeah.
Shots flying by, arms blow, you're stepping on bombs. Like, is that yoga really going to work? And that's why people say, I've tried yoga, it didn't work. Well, because you're doing it in the middle of Vietnam. That's why.
Yeah.
Right?
I
Because
told you guys
they're
when I walk outside Portland, I see like the
right.
apocalyptic vision, all the stuff that's going on with people with needles and people just living on the streets and stuff. It's crazy. Yeah.
We have to take a step back and we have to observe a little bit.
Right.
That's what we ask our clients to do, is just take a step back and start to observe what really is working and get honest with yourself. What's really working and what isn't. That's a great place for people to begin.
Yeah.
Right?
But be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
It's realistic. It's realistic.
Yeah, it's realistic.
Yeah.
But the food piece is tangible for people because everyone thinks food creates utopia. It doesn't. Healing is more than food. But for a lot of people, it's like marijuana. It's a gateway drug, right?
Okay, yeah, explain that a little bit more. So
Well, because most people are willing to focus on what they eat, right? Because it can
Mhm.
make them feel good, helps them with Candida, gets rid of their SIBO, so it's easier than saying, you are what you are because you were physically abused when you were 18. Like most people don't want to talk about that when they don't feel good, or because you're overtraining or you're not getting enough sleep. Like sometimes talking about that stuff is challenging. So for a lot of people, we use our food strategy to quiet down
All the noise.
the noise, the burden on the adrenal system to begin to change the state in the body. We're kind of like stopping the war in a sense. We're stopping Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
Because stress is the perceived need for energy. So anytime the demands being placed in the system exceed what the system can handle, the stress isn't a thing, right? It's a physiological reaction. So we quiet down that physiological reaction, right? Because if you're running all day 24/7 physiologically, you're going to be anxious. You're never going to heal no matter what you eat or what supplement you take. So we're trying to quiet that system down, right? So the adrenals aren't on all the time. They're on when they need to, but they're off when they need to, right? And we do that through blood sugar regulation and energy storage, because now there's money in the bank. Now we're replenishing the system, and now you can use energy instead of stress hormones to produce energy, because when there's fuel available, now the thyroid has fuel to burn. you don't have fuel available and you're in a stress state, what you're producing blocks thyroid hormone conversion and production, hands down, physiologically, right?
Yeah.
So now we have fuel, we can allow the thyroid to convert in the liver, and the cell can use that to produce energy. And anytime you produce energy, which is CO2, you begin to strengthen your vagal tone, which is the brake to the sympathetic nervous system, right? So it's not just about doing something parasympathetic or how do I quiet down my sympathetic. You have to strengthen your vagal brake, which controls the sympathetic. I need to go running. Okay, I'm going to run. I came home, I'm going to rest. Vagal brake goes back on. But if your system's dysregulated, this is on all the time, right? So we're using our food physiologically to do that, to get people out of Vietnam, to change the environment, to change the cause so they see different effects.
I love that. Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, I definitely experienced that personally. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think also the way I see it is you like, and another way, I guess, to just say it, it also is like you're learning your body is getting something consistent, like through the food and the blood sugar regulation. And so then it begins to trust that it doesn't have to be in a fight or flight mode all the time, right? So like and so that's part of it, right? Is that, the body
I
starts to
think
adjust.
we're teaching people how to eat based on their body's rhythms and energy needs and demands, right?
Mhm.
As well as where they are physiologically, like Josh mentioned. We look at the body as a budget, and most people are coming to us every day well below the red line. And then again, to repeat what he said earlier, have borrowed $1 million against that account. So here we step into this healing process. Did we freeze?
Yes.
She froze.
Oh, I'm gonna keep going.
You guys froze on my end.
So here we stop in.
Hold on a second. Ah.
Oh, that was interesting. I don't know where I left off or what I thought.
Well, you were talking about like taking out millions of dollars out of your or being, being in a
Yes.
deficit.
So we come into the day and she's
What? What's so funny?
froze at the same time. Okay, let's try this.
I look like surprised. Oh,
Yeah.
It's COVID. Your computer is COVID.
So
I hope not.
people are coming in well below that red line and have borrowed lots of money against it, right? Against that budget. So we come in and we start to regulate. We give the body what it needs. We say, let's give the liver the tools it needs to be able to create some conversion, quiet the adrenals down, build some energy. But life keeps happening, right?
Yeah.
So we have to really help them understand the rhythm of their body and their body's ability to regulate and where they're at. So people, speaking to somebody earlier today, or even yesterday, I find a couple people are just kind of pushing their bodies to do what their bodies aren't ready for, right? Like we're working against nature. And we help them understand that, no, this isn't about eating every 3 hours, eating every 4 hours, and eating carbohydrates. It's about working with your rhythms and meeting your body where it is consistently, so that over time, you begin to develop that resiliency and we quiet the system enough so that we're reconnecting the brain to the body, right? Because there's this massive disconnection. And it's that period, it's that adaptation over time that brings us away from that breakdown and back into a buildup, so where we can bounce back from stress a lot easier.
Yeah, because it's not about eliminating the stress, because you'll never do that. Like it's about being able to be more resilient to it and come back from it and repair, right?
Another way to think of it, I always tell clients that struggle with the concept, because everyone comes from chasing, right? We're just trying to create health. It'd be like, you can remember having, your children as babies. Why don't you, when your child wakes up extremely hungry in the morning as a baby, why don't you just go, oh, I'm going to do a 16-hour fast. I have to wait 4 hours to feed them. And I'm only going to give them protein today. And I'm going to overstimulate them. And I'm not going to give them enough sleep. Everything that we're doing as adults. how would your children actually do? Horrendous, right?
Terrible.
Just
Yeah.
the thought of that is
Yeah.
like horrible. We're no different than a child.
Especially when our nervous system has unraveled a little bit, right? Or there's
Yeah.
not that balance. You do need to actually think about yourself as an infant, and how would you nurture that infant? Because that's
it's like,
Yeah. I
essentially
love that.
what you need.
you're like a
Yeah.
mother again, even if you're a dude, you're a mother trying to navigate. What does that cry mean? When does he need to eat? You know,
Yeah.
being like with Harrison, we create this environment because we know when he's getting overstimulated. We know when we need to go, okay, it's time to do crafts,
How do you know?
but take a time out.
Yeah.
How do you
We
know?
could all use some craft time right now, I think.
I just know, like,
I know because
intuitively
he goes,
sometimes, or he
"Ah!"
gets feisty, or he fusses, or he just
Hmm.
starts headbutting me, or
Yeah,
just
right?
know,
That you know there's something going on, right? You're
Yeah.
like, this
Yeah.
isn't. Mhm.
But we have to start thinking of ourselves as children, and we get so lost in the workouts, the diets, with our work,
Yeah.
chasing money, chasing symptoms. What's wrong with us? There's nothing wrong with you. You're just,
Right.
your life, your nutrition, your physiology is just being mismanaged because you let your 1-year-old wake up and not eat for 4 hours, and then you overstimulated them. You know, all the things you're doing, it just doesn't work. So we're just trying to bring people back and say, how do I create a better environment for health? Because if I do that, eventually health is going to flourish, because that's all
Yeah.
about it.
So it sounds like what you're saying, Josh, is that our bodies never really changed since we were infants, but we just aren't as well, we're not listening, and we're not as good at communicating with our bodies as we once were.
For a
As
Well,
far
lot
as,
of people. For a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
people, they have their developmental, nervous system kind of got stuck at
yeah, right.
I mean, we
4 or
grow
even
and we
earlier
evolve, and
sometimes,
our
right?
bones grow and our
Of
nervous system
course.
grows,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, there's a lot of people stuck in that primitive piece of their nervous system, which
Yeah.
is very primitive.
Yeah.
It's the oldest piece of the nervous system. It's what babies are born with. It's unmyelinated. That's why when your baby cries, they can't nurture themselves back to sleep. They need you to pick them up and nurture them. All these little things help them and shapes their nervous system. Environment shapes their nervous system, right? So we have changed, but in a sense, a lot of us are locked in that state, and that's why we need that help to get out of it. And that's what we help people do. I mean, obviously with some people, we don't talk this technical, it's just about the nutrition, but we can do it directly or indirectly,
Yeah.
And it's a huge piece because so many people are struggling with immune system issues.
But ideally, that is what we're working with. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we're working with. We're working with the nervous system. We're talking
Of
adrenals
course.
and thyroid, but
you can't talk about the
Yeah.
thyroid without the adrenals. You can't talk about the nervous system with the thyroid. And a
because
lot of people are trying to
gut,
focus
immune, any of it.
on thyroid
Yeah,
health,
that's
which
true.
is the thyroid. And it's an integrated system. Whether you're talking about energy, whether you're talking about minerals, whether you're talking about, it doesn't matter. It's all integrated and they feed one another.
Yeah, it's really weird how we separate that out in our society, and even with the immunity too. We're like, oh, immunity is just a separate thing that works on its own, and everything else is also on its own. But really, like, it works. The nervous system. If your nervous system is on edge, your immunity is going to be on edge too. It's just going to be hyper, you know, um, I guess sensitive to and not work as well. I mean, I remember, I know when I used to look at the Ray Peat stuff, I remember him saying something about how, you know, when your immunity is working properly, you have those, youth steroid hormones that will turn off the inflammation when you get something that is going to make you sick, like a virus or something, which was really interesting to me when I read that. I was like, wow, okay, so it's about really toning it down and being more in a relaxed mode. So the more like relaxed you can be, the better you're going to be able to be resilient against that kind of thing, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I think that there's, so much of of research shows how directly connected emotions are to the
Yeah.
immune system, almost more so than anything else, right? So if
Yes.
we begin to break that down and look at the emotional state of most people, and again, how frazzled and uncertain and in fear and scared we are, we can, again, it tells a lot about what's breaking us down,
Yeah.
But that's what Hans Healy showed eons ago, that
Yeah,
chronic
right.
stress depletes, causes bone demineralization. Chronic stress causes increased TSH. Chronic stress causes fat accumulation. Chronic stress suppresses the immune system. It's that simple. Whether it's
Yeah.
an emotional stress, physical stress, doesn't matter. It's accumulation. And this is why I said we're at the end of our rope. People have so many autoimmune diseases, right? Because they're $1 million in debt now. And
Yeah.
it's that chronic stress in the system, whether it's coming from emotional, but it doesn't matter because it's the body's reacting the same way, you know? And we're
Right.
not saying if you have an emotional trauma that food's the answer, but for a lot of people, it can be the foundation, because if you can change the environment and quiet someone down and make them feel that much more resilient,
And
then
safe.
Yeah,
Safe.
exactly.
Safety
Yeah.
is a very important word there. I'm sorry.
they feel that much more open to talk about other things and look at other pieces to the healing puzzle. But when we don't feel resilient and we feel like crap, the
Mhm.
littlest things overwhelm us,
It's
right?
true. Yeah.
So we like to, that's why I say it's kind of the gateway to get other people to focus on other things, because you can't do everything at once. People come to us and say, well, I'm working with an emotional counselor, I'm going to do your nutrition, I'm in college, I have 2 jobs, and I'm going to do this silent retreat, and I'm working with a functional medicine practitioner. Do you think that's enough for help to help me heal?
It's way
It's
too
too
much.
much. It's
Yeah.
too much, but that's what people are doing,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
we kind of have to back off. And for me, for us, like that foundation is food. Of course, there's other, but if we don't eat, we die. And most
Yeah.
people, unfortunately, if you think about it, are slowly dying, you know?
And I just want to
Yeah.
repeat that point, all the conversation we're having about the state of the nervous system and the body really fighting for survival and running and running and running and going and going and going. Yet when we start to heal, we want to do more. And that
Right.
is where we really do need to do less and get a little and prioritize it a little bit more,
Yeah.
strategize against it a little bit more. Absolutely. I think
Totally.
people are way overloaded, and that's what we've been conditioned to believe, is if we do more, we're going to get the result, a greater result, faster, when it
Yeah.
can be further from the truth when we're working with what we're working with in this day and age with respect to health.
I
It's
mean,
just
you're a good
not
example.
accessible.
I mean, I remember when we started, weren't you, maybe I'm thinking of someone else, but weren't you like overeating or overdoing certain foods?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
And then we actually did less,
Yeah.
and you got way better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We do that with so
Totally.
many clients.
Yeah.
we have to take away.
Yeah, I mean, I started with you guys a long time ago, so I've been through different phases, but the last phase, I was healing, I was going through a healing phase with my back and stuff. So
Right.
I knew I was under eating for a long time. So, and that was part of my problem for a long time. And then, so I kind of counteracted that by overeating, and eating like, so for those of you guys who aren't familiar with the repeat work, there's kind of a philosophy where from my audience anyway, there's a philosophy, and some of you guys might know about this because there might be some repeat people that still listen to my show. But anyway, the orange juice, all the so-called high metabolic foods, the carbs, the carbs that are highly metabolic, don't actually work for everybody. But I was doing a lot of those things, and it was really putting more energy into my system that I had the capacity to really digest and assimilate, and the amount of time that I was taking it in. So it was like too much, too fast, right?
Mm.
It helped on some levels, but then after a little bit of time, it was started to actually impede my system. So I started getting really bloated. I gained weight. My metabolism actually slowed down. And then I got with Josh again after not working with you guys for a while, and then I was like, "What's going on, Josh? I feel like I'm doing all this stuff right." And he's like, it's like what you're doing is you're taking in carbs that are going to be like lighting a match. So they're going to burn and go out very quickly. So you're not going to have any sustained energy. So what I really discovered about myself is I was eating the wrong kinds of carbs. It wasn't that I was eating carbs and they weren't good for me. It was that um, I had to change the timing of the carbs that I was eating and the kinds of carbs I was eating and how I was eating them, if that makes sense.
It's a
So as
strategy.
soon as I did that, I lost the weight. I had gained an extra 15 pounds, and then because my body was like, okay, we don't have this extra stress on us anymore. So we're going to let go of this extra weight. And that's what happened. And it was awesome.
I love what you said, Allison, about, you started one way and it stopped working, right? And
Yes.
that's such an
Yeah.
important thing, because when I always tell people, when people come to work with us, they don't walk away the same physiologically, because we're working so deeply to change the state of the system. So to get locked into one way of, oh, this is it, I got it, right? Is
Right.
a big mistake that so many people make, instead of, again, adapting to where you are. And this comes back to meeting the body where it is, what's happening at this phase, right?
Exactly.
Something stopped working, how do we begin to change it? But also the types of foods. I mean, we can have a meal that is exactly the same macro wise, exactly the same calorically, but two totally different types of foods, and get two completely different responses physiologically in the system.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
that's a real misunderstanding for people as well, because most of the women and men too that we're talking to are eating foods that would be the equivalent of throwing lighter fluid on fire, right?
Yeah. Right.
It's just
Right.
that long burn, that long sustainable burn that we're looking for in our meals
Yeah.
to help us.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. Like you have to find out what works best for you as an individual. Like if there was one diet that worked for everybody, we would have found that by now, right?
And at
Right.
what phase of your healing process?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and exactly. Then and I was going to add, like you said, it's going to change as your body changes. What you eat and how you eat is going to change. So it's like you guys do a great job of coaching people through that. And like I've taken your program as well, your group program, and it is amazing because you're able to, I think you guys have just been doing it for so long that you're like, I think I called you guys the food log whisperer, because you get all these different like messages within people's food logs and what's going on really with them. And I was just like, so it's incredible to see you guys work with some people on their food logs. I've never seen anybody do that with such artistry before. And the having the word food log and artistry in the same sentence is really
Right.
interesting. But it did feel like that. I was like, wow, this is like amazing, like to watch this. But you guys are really good at what you do, and I think you've just seen, been doing it for a long time and seen so many different patterns that
Right.
it sounds like that you guys can, see it pretty quickly what's going on, and it works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got to be personalized. We all have different needs, different story.
Then the
You
food
know?
logs tell the story. They
Yeah.
tell us
It's
the
their day on
story.
paper.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
the more we can look at that and be strategic, the more benefit we can make, or we can create right now, and obviously evolve with that. But you did say something important. I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was along the lines of what I'm kind of heard from this was, I don't know if it was emotional stress. I forget exactly what you said, but the problem with health and nutrition right now is it's creating more stress for people,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So the idea of I want to get healthy is becoming unhealthy because it's so extreme, right?
Yeah.
So for us, that if you're creating stress, doesn't matter where it's coming from, right? If it's emotional, or you're being OCD and you need to log every day and hit your macros, like that creates stress in the system. It's still a stress,
Yeah.
right? You shouldn't have to do that. So it's like you have a balance point of health, and people have they started here. I feel like crap. They tried to get healthy and now they're on this side. We're just trying to bring people back and say, how do we create this sustainable way of eating and living so we can find this balance point, heal, enjoy my foods, but not let it control my life, not let it become unhealthy like you see on the web now. And those are all the people running around saying, I have this, that, and everything. I've tried every program. It shouldn't be a thing. Food is a part of our life.
Right.
It should just be weaved into our day to support what we're doing, just like our grandparents did. You never heard them say, I have mold toxicity, right? That's the new one.
That's
Everyone
true.
has mold toxicity, MTHFR. Like, where do these things come from all of a sudden? Right?
I
Not
think it
those
comes from
people
people
that,
having such a low metabolism. You know what I mean? It's like all that stuff, you're just more susceptible. Yeah.
well, we see
Right.
these waves. We've been doing this work 20 years. 5 years ago, everyone had Lyme.
But I think it only
Everyone
does.
came to us with Lyme. Now everyone is Hashimoto's.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There's trends, but it's like, it creates, no matter if you have it or not, but most people that do, now you're chasing again, because what we've seen is it's the chase for the mold, and I got to do the house, and then I got to do this protocol, and
Yeah.
and it creates such this. It's almost like, the way I look at it, you turn your health into this chemistry experiment, and that's not fun anymore. So if
Yeah.
what you're doing isn't fun and it's not sustainable, you got to find a different way to do it, because it is creating more stress on your system.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that die off thing is not fun. That whole like antifungal, anti Candida die off thing, that is not fun. I don't know how anybody's doing that, honestly. And, but people want to do it. But yeah, I agree
I
with you
think because they
100%. I
don't
feel,
know what else to do. And so,
what's
yeah.
that?
I
Is,
think they don't know what else to do. They're looking,
yeah, that's true.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just, at this point in my life on a personal level, I just want to enjoy the experience of eat delicious food, and the other thing is like, just, I think, as you guys probably know, when you figure out, and maybe figure out is not the best way to put it, but when you just maybe discover what really works well for you in that regard, I think that you'll never forget how to do it. It's not something you're going to have to really, you may have to tweak it or whatever, depending on the season, or kind of where you are at and your stressors and those kind of things. But other than that, I think once you really figure out what works, it's not really going to change, as far as like knowing, having the tools that you need when you need them.
Well, because you have the awareness now.
Awareness is power.
Yeah. Yeah,
And you can't
totally.
shut it off. Once you've got it,
It sucks sometimes.
it's on. It's like you want to. That whole idea of ignorance
Yeah.
is bliss. So true.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're out. I remember when we drove to Idaho. Like, there's a point where there's like nothing. It's just literally straight road through hills, and all of a sudden you're driving 3 hours. You hit a gas station, and you drive another 3 hours. There's like nothing, and we're
Yeah.
just like, oh my god! Like, we brought food, we brought a cooler, but it was a
And
2 day.
we ate it all.
We ate it all. Like, oh, this is fun. This is a fun trip. Oh shit, we have no food left. And I remember we passed like a Denny's.
Yeah.
And there was literally nothing for like another 5 hours.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I can't believe I have to eat Denny's right now. We did, and we lived.
Yeah, you live
it is what it is.
the story.
Most people, I would have starved. Well, that would have created, being hungry is not for me a fun place to be. So, we may do. I think I had like a salad with chicken on it. And
you just do the best with what you got sometimes, That's,
but I
Yeah.
think people can't let go, and they can't do that, and that creates that fear, that stress, and now you've gone past the balance point. Now you're dropping into that deep dorsal vagal immobilized state. You don't want to be there, right?
Yeah.
It's not good to be there. We want to be able to adapt. I always tell people, if you eat and live and think and breathe in a way that creates health, right? And you go out one night and drink, or you miss a meal, or you have to eat Denny's. If you fall apart, then what you're doing is not working.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that. Yeah, because it's got to be something that's adaptable on occasion. Like it's not always going to be the perfect scenario if you're out of your environment, especially like traveling is the best example. What do you do when you go to another country? Like, you're gonna have to eat what's there, most likely.
What you got.
You can, but the thing, like you said earlier, it's like you kind of know what you need, so you do the best that you can with what you got.
Yeah. Right.
So that awareness again is your power, and spending a little time with yourself to develop that awareness and to play with it a little bit. It's a lifelong thing. It's forever.
I love it. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. Well, that was amazing. We're coming up on the hour. Do you guys have anything you want to share with everybody, or any other things you just want to mention before we close up here? That was such a great conversation.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Just, if you want to learn more, obviously, we're on social media, Instagram, Real Food Gangstas, and our website is eastwesthealing.com. So check us out there if you want to, chat. We offer free 15-minute consultations. So
everyone, we've done that for 20 years.
To chat with everybody and introduce you to the work and what it means for you in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have a great Instagram feed. You're real consistent with it, and there's always some really good information on there. And are you guys in the middle of a program right now, a group program? Okay.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a group program right now. We do one-on-one coaching with clients all over the globe. So you can always email us. We can talk to you about that. And then we do group coaching, which is a group of 20 people, which Allison mentioned she did. There's a class going right now. The next class starts in like February-ish. So if you're interested to get on the wait list, you can go to our website, eastwesthealing.com, click on the group coaching tab, and you can enter your email when you get to that page. It'll add you to the list so we can let you know when it opens again.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure and an honor to talk to you today.
No,
Thanks,
thanks,
Allison. You
Allison.
too. Great to
All
be
right.
here.
All right.